And one of the things that's happened to me just this semester, I've been a faculty member for 33 years now. It's a long time. And I've used to be quite proud of my teaching. I would get teaching evaluations 3.6, 3.7. I thought that was pretty good. But then I attended one of CAFE's 10 Steps for Teaching Success programs called the Building Blocks Workshop. Has anybody in here been in the Building Blocks Workshop? Oh, quite a few of you. This is good. And I figured out I've been doing it wrong for 33 years with respect to, I'll say, setting the stage to make sure my students were learning what I wanted them to. And I've written a teaching philosophy statement for my dossiers and such over the years, but when it comes down to it, I think I have always modeled myself as an educator after faculty that I thought were effective for me as an undergraduate and a graduate student. I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to be like. But the truth of the matter is, very few of us, when we join a campus, particularly like Missouri&t, are trained educators. My expertise is in electronic ceramics and electromagnetic pulse weapons and piezoelectrics, and boy, I know that stuff backwards and forwards, but can I convey it to a student so they can get a job and they can be successful in their career? That's a big if. And I think after 30 plus years of doing it, I do a pretty good job, but I've learned a lot just this semester about new and effective ways to really assess what my students are learning. And so why do I say any of these things? I'm telling you that even when you're an old codger like me, there's always room for improvement, room to learn. And when it comes down to articulating one's teaching philosophy statement for a dossier or an award or something like that, people on promotion and tenure committees pay attention to these statements. And so I chaired the campus P&T committee. Last year, I'm on the committee again. This year, I've done this, I'd hate to guess how many times. There's a section of your dossier that's called teaching. Let me pull this up for a second. I want to show you something. This is what's on the front, the page of this section of your dossier. It's what appears there. If you study that closely, you'll find the first paragraph is mostly about evaluating your teaching performance, albeit it's in not too specific type of phraseology, other than noting that it's good if you have other faculty evaluate your teaching, write a letter, but only if they've been to your class. It's good if you collect letters of support from your students, but only if it was vetted by some external process. There's nothing in there about things that I think are important to all of us with respect to teaching. I know myself, I always prided myself on teaching labs and on developing a unique set of laboratory facilities and teaching courses that are taught nowhere else on campus and things where I really felt I fit into the picture, fit into the big picture of what am I doing for my department, what am I doing for my college, what am I doing for my university? And being able to state something like that, that turns out to be the bottom part here. A self-assessment of teaching techniques, goals, and methods utilized and developed by the candidate, etc. So anyway, what we're hoping to do today, and Marisa once is giving me an evil eye that I forgot to do something that I'll do in just a second. We're hoping that...
I will give you the evil eye.
Yeah, we want to help you with this part of it. It's important. It's not the numbers. It's not how many classes did I teach, how many SCHs did I generate, what was my CET score. It's you. It's what defines you as an educator. And it's a place in your dossier where you can express to others, why did I choose to become a professor? Hopefully it's because we like to profess and to educate and to do that effectively. But this is the place in a dossier where you get to expound upon that. It's really an opportunity to define yourself, and maybe at today's workshop, what we're hoping is that you start thinking along the lines of, well, what do I want to be remembered for? As Larry will probably tell you, when he talks to alums from 50, 60 years ago, what do they remember? They remember effective faculty members. I remember Jack Ridley in the history department lecturing about Napoleon. I remember Don Sparlin, Meg's dad, teaching me about solid-state physics and Fourier transforms and scaring me to death the first day of class, but then the guy held my hand and drugged me through some of the nastiest physics I've ever encountered, but survived. Those people that make a difference in your life, we want you to all be people, faculty members that make a difference to the lives of students. And this section of your dossier is your place where you can talk about that. We want you to succeed individually as faculty, of course, but we also want you to always keep in mind what our product is here. We produce students, we produce knowledge. Those two are intimately intertwined with one another. So I'll be quiet here. I was supposed to introduce, I'm sure I talked more than my 5 minutes, but thank you for being here today, and I hope we have a productive session to talk through some things. Marisa asked that we go around the room one by one and introduce ourselves. I think that's a great idea.
I also want to thank some of our masterminder mentors who are here to help us. Back in the corner, Bob Schwartz, Joan Schumann over here, and Irina over here. And I also wanted to thank one person in particular. Marisa is also one of our masterminder mentors. And I wanted to say something specific about Marisa. In the first year that we had Cafe, we had several sessions for our early career faculty dealing with sponsored programs. And every time we asked Marisa to help us out, she not only showed up, she did a phenomenal job. And I haven't really publicly thanked you for that. You willingly became a masterminder mentor, and when this opportunity came up, you jumped right into this, so thank you very, very much for that. We really appreciate it. I mentioned the masterminder mentors, and we have this wonderful set of cards, and all these folks, 4 of them are here. Well, actually, there are 6 of us here who identify what they're willing to help people with who want to chat with a mentor. It's often helpful to do that outside your department, and we meet usually once a month, and we get reports on how many mentoring sessions we've had. And we've had a boatload of mentoring sessions on everything from how do I get along with Nick Libre in my department to should I think about applying for that position at another university, or what is it I should be thinking about putting into my research dossier? I mean, it's been the whole gamut, and these folks are quite willing to chat with you, and it's all confidential. We don't report on who we talk to. We only talk about the things that people brought to our attention. So are these at every table?
No, they're in the back.
Oh, they're in the back. Okay, so please pick one of those up as you go out. Thank you, Beth. So now you got to work. This is a set of questions we want you to look at and have a conversation at your table.
Why don't we pick why did they choose to become a professor?
Yeah,
Question. There's one on the second page that's kind of like that. What inspired you?
that's a great one.
Let's talk about that one and get started.
Let's make that one the question everybody deals with at their table. Good. Okay.
And had a gift.
What was the collective answer at this table to what inspired your interest to become a professor, or was it all over the place?
Generally, like the progression of how we ended up being teachers, and we were kind of getting on to why we like. What does that mean, like to teach?
Why?
So we hadn't like finished that part,
Okay.
but yeah,
we were on that
light
train.
bulb moments.
Part 2. We'll do
Light
part
bulb
2.
moments.
How about this table?
I'll summarize it with, I guess, one word, which would be passion. Okay, we had one of our table members talked about passion for the topic. Others talked about passion to help others learn, and I think for all of us there was a desire to be mentors, to mentor students. So it was the ability to interact with students in that type of situation.
Table 5.
I'd say we came from it from a lot of different angles. We've got 2 that are teachers but not faculty members as of yet. But I agree with Bob that passion was one of the things that came out of it. Having that light bulb moment, what really drives us to do more and be better and try to improve.
Table 3.
Well, we all kind of came from different experiences in our background, but we all agreed that we wouldn't change the path that we've chosen. And what kind of has led us into teaching is that we've all kind of wanted to be mentors and help others, and we really like that being able to explain things and help others grow. So that was
Okay.
the main thing.
Here at table 1, I was taking good notes and I kept underlining the word interaction with students. That was the unifying theme from the discussion that we had here. And some folks did not start teaching in higher ed. They started out in the private sector and they decided they wanted to switch to something else. So, good discussion. So this next section, I'm supposed to talk. Yeah.
Just in your teaching
You see, if
philosophy.
you notice that Wayne never lets me get going, I get started with something, he says, no, what you should do is this. That's what it's been like with me for 2 years. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Tell your story in your teaching philosophy statement, how you got to be where you are. I know it just at our table here, it's very inspiring. People want to know. It turns, when you're evaluating, when the different committees are evaluating your dossier, it brings the human element into it, because we may know nothing about your expertise area, but if you tell the story as, here's how I became interested in being a professor, this is my way of giving back, it's inspiring. It inspires others to hear your story.
Yeah, it reminds me that a former fellow chair, Jim Drallmeyer, said, this is maybe your one and only chance to present yourself to a campus committee who doesn't know who you are. So take this opportunity and exploit it. I brought my teaching philosophy. Yes, Bob.
Can I add on to that just for a second?
Okay, I'm never going to get started with my comments. Go right ahead.
A couple of quick points. I think Wayne had this on one of his slides. I think this is really an important point. We haven't talked about it. How do you uniquely contribute? I think is really good. But maybe even more importantly than that, I think your statement can convey your measure of commitment to teaching, the thought that you put into your teaching, and it really is a chance, to tell your story, but to really show the passion that you have, in that document. Don't underestimate the importance of the philosophy statement. It's a chance for you basically to capture whatever you want. It can be really important.
Okay, good, thank you. Good discussion. Several years ago, I had to write, yet again, my personal statement. I was being nominated for an award, and one of the components of the package was I had to write my statement. So I had to think about what I'd done for many, many decades and had my reason for teaching changed. And this is going to be one cheap way for me to hand out some of our stuff. What I want to tell you about is something I call the Donald Nicholson effect, which is what led me to really become a college professor. And it had to do with my very first year in college, fall of 1968. Now someone's going to say, I wasn't even born yet. Everybody's going to say I wasn't even born yet in the fall of 1968. Go ahead, make me feel bad.
My dad wasn't born yet.
Your dad was, thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful. Now you make me feel really ancient. That's really good. That's really good. Thank you. My dad wasn't even born yet. I've had students in my classes who will say, my dad had you for a teacher. And so I go look them up in my grade books, and they get to find out what I violate FERPA. I tell them what their dad made in my class. I was not a really good high school student, slightly above average. I didn't think I deserved to be in college. And I decided to go to college not based upon whatever material that was sent out to recruit students. I was head over heels in love with somebody who I've been married to for 47 years now, so I decided I would go to college wherever she went. That's how I picked my college. And I didn't think I was ready for it. She was valedictorian of the high school class. She was really, really bright, and I was just average. And I knew I wanted to be a history teacher. I didn't know about being a history professor, but a history teacher. And the first history class I took was Professor Nicholson. And he looked like the guy out of Central Casting. He was a University of Wisconsin PhD in history, and he had always wore this great light gray suit, starch collars, starch cuffs, beautiful tie, silver hair. And the first day he came to class, he didn't say anything to anybody other than call the roll. Then he took out a little notebook from inside his jacket pocket, opened it up, and turned and wrote a complete outline on the chalkboard. First lecture. And then just gave this long, long lecture. And he did that every class. And then gave us our first test based on many, many chapters and all those, did I just have a stroke or did the lights go out? I'm okay? I'm okay. He gave us our first test and I took it and thought I did horribly. And he came back to the class, the next class session, and he started going around the room and just dropping everybody's test right in front of them. And when he got to me, he dropped it and he leaned in and he said, I would like you to come to my office after class. So what did I conclude from that? Now what was he going to tell me? Get out. I was not a good high school student. I was taking my first history test. I was certain he was going to say, you just don't measure up to collegiate work. So I didn't look at the test. Went and knocked on his door. And he said, please come sit down. He said, I just wanted to tell you that at some point in your high school years, someone taught you how to write well. You're going to be a remarkable success at this institution. And the light bulb came on. I can do this. I call it the Nicholson effect, and I decided I have to do that. I have to connect with students. I have to reassure them that as hard as this is going to be, I can help them get there. And I've been doing that for, how many semesters would that be? I started in the fall of '77.
Yes, 42 times 2, 84.
Whew, that's a long time. So what I tried to do was kind of institutionalize it. I have all my students come in for 3 interviews during the semester. One to get, for me to learn something about them. The second one's right after the first major exam. David, tell me, I'm just going to take notes here, David. How did you prepare for this exam? I'm not going to judge you. I just want you to tell me, when did you start and how did you do it? And that lets me get a sense of how well or poorly that the class prepared, and then I share with them best practices. And then for the third interview, we talk about how they're going to prepare for the final. Well, all of that is in my teaching philosophy. It has to do with connecting with students. Now, you don't have to do it the way I do it, but there needs to be a rationale for why you wanted to do this job and why you're doing it the way you are. So, which question should we go to next, Wayne, for the working group? Let's start with table 5 this time. Oh, we lost the question. Favorite class to teach?
So we talked about, we didn't really follow your guidelines.
Just tell us what question. Just tell us.
Just hold on. So we talked about maybe favorite classes that we took in addition to classes that we like to teach. So things that the reason we like to teach some of the classes that we like to teach are maybe they're less structured, maybe the classes are smaller, the students come in and we know them because we had experiences where we taught them a couple of times and so we get them in this class so we already know them. But above all, it's the passion that we feel for the teaching. Some of the things that I thought was interesting that we talked about as far as favorite faculty or professors or teachers we had growing up. One of the things is that they would take time with us, no matter how much time it required, and we never felt like they made us feel stupid or that we had stupid questions. That they made it fun, that they really took the time, they really had an impact on what we liked or didn't like. They challenged us. So those are the things that made a difference for us. So I think that's what we can learn from that to see what is it we want to aspire to.
I like that. Table 2.
Okay, I'm the one reporting. This time we discussed for the class that we find that we all like to teach. We rotated to what we find more engaging and where we can relish some control. For example, we had experiences with preparing students to teach high school math. We had graduates in upper graduate courses that are in our field of specialty where you don't have to necessarily follow script, so more like a seminar style and becomes more engaging. We also taught how to teach. We actually have to learn a lot because it's not always easy to convey the message of what we learn. And the last thing we discussed was should we be recording ourselves teaching, because a lot gets, it's not necessarily written down, the tips and the information and how we convey it in class. So often students might not come or miss a class and, oh, I missed the good part. So we're discussing that.
Okay. Table 6.
Sure, Larry, we'd be happy to report out. Unlike the first question, on this one we were a bit more all over the place. We certainly talked also about our favorite classes and why, and not just what was our favorite class to teach, but in terms of why we were interested in teaching our favorite classes, it was really a range of things, all the way from because it's at the core of our interest and what got us interested in the topic to start with, and we still have great passion for that part of the field, to the ability to have a class where you can really roll in current events and real-world examples, stuff fresh off the press. And I have a class like that this semester as well. And after the Lion Air jet in November crashed, we started looking at Boeing, and then another Boeing jet crashed. And every day in the news, Boeing, it just keeps going. So it's a great example in decisions that affect people and sensors versus humans. Other things we talked about, a class where student progress and growth is really evident. It's very rewarding to teach a class like that. We had one of our table members talk about that. In addition to, wow, I have a class where I'm actually learning something from my students, the way I've structured the class and I'm teaching it. Now I'm starting to learn things from them. And last but not least, certainly a class where you can roll in favorite approaches to teach that you like. This is everything we talked about.
Table 3.
That's us. Well, I feel like we did a pretty thorough scientific investigation into the teaching practices that, this table did. And what
We'll
we
be the judge of that.
Well, let's lay it out there. So what we discovered is we teach varieties of classes. Some people teach the class that they develop for the very first time versus, those of us who teach the same class over and over for many years. We had classes primarily designed for freshmen or seniors or for graduate students. We also have classes that are very small in size, that is less than 10, versus those that are 45 and higher. I think the three things that we distilled from our conversation were this. We all like student-centered classroom. We refrain from being in front, teaching, and just doing that primarily. So we lay responsibility for student success partially on our students. That's the premise number one. The second thing I think we all liked is to be very practical in what we teach to our students. Because if you don't connect the material with the real life application, that's what it is. It's a theoretical curiosity versus practical knowledge that they can use. And we like fun, and that's number 3. That's all.
Before Table 4 reports out, the performance Sunday is going to feature.
Yes, so shameless plug. We have our spring band concert coming up on Sunday at 2 o'clock in Leach, and the Wind Symphony will be featuring the 1812 Overture with pyrotechnics.
With the explosives folks.
With the explosive engineering folks.
So don't miss it.
Yeah,
Interdisciplinary.
it's going great.
Okay. So after that plug, report out.
So I think what we, kind of the overarching theme of our discussion was we enjoy the courses that we have to teach a lot more often. And that kind of forces us to, or even allows us, if you want to be the positive side of it, allows us to adapt our teaching and so to continually get better and create better courses the more we teach them. I think that's what we kind of settled on the courses we were talking about.
Okay, cool. Did I catch everybody but table one? Okay, we talked about how much fun it is to teach the first class in a student's major. They've gotten past the history class and the calculus class. Now they're into the major, and that's because they're enthusiastic about it. Teaching in one's emphasis areas, because that's the area that you're doing your research in, and you have great excitement talking about what you're doing in your own research. One of us really likes classes that have labs because they grade all of their labs themselves. They don't have a TA doing the lab grading because they use that as a tool to help students understand what they're collectively not doing well and what they are doing well. A class that involves critical thinking, no textbook, presentations, guest speakers, because that keeps the students engaged and they become creative. And then the last one is me. I love teaching the required history class. Because on the first day of the semester I say, why are you here? And most of them say, well, my advisor said I had to be here. So, well, any other reason why you're here? No. I love that because by the end of the semester, I want them to see a meaning to that class. I love that challenge. The upper level classes were too easy to teach because they chose to take that upper level class. Okay, good discussion, and I'm glad that people went off script and picked other areas to focus upon. Yeah, we saved the best to last. And I have a chapter in my history of the campus for our sesquicentennial, which was 2020, called Minor Faculty and Staff. And I can't talk about every faculty member in the history of the institution, but I wrote about many people who illustrate significant contributions that they've made to the campus, and the person who's about to participate here is going to be in that chapter.
Well, thank you.
Because I talked about people who have become familiar faces in a meaningful way to the campus. So, with that shameless plug about my book, and Marisa.
Thank you.
So I really enjoyed doing this because it gave me a chance to sit back and reflect on something we don't often take time to sit back and reflect about, and that's teaching philosophy. So one of the first things that one of my professors said to me, and I think this is very relevant, you know, that our students are not bottles to be filled, right? We don't want to just regurgitate information into them. We want to light their candles in whatever field that is. So, no fire hoses. I think a lot of us get into the idea that we have a finite amount of knowledge that we have to shove into our students before they can leave this campus. And it doesn't matter, you know, how we do that or whether they enjoy the process, that we will cram it down their throat, literally. I don't subscribe to that idea. For me personally, I would rather teach a little bit less, but have them take a more holistic approach to what they learn about. So, we've talked about passion. And the word passion comes from the Latin passio, which means to suffer. I do not believe in suffering. I truly believe that what we want to do is to increase their interest. Because look, let's go exploring. Let's find out more. I don't want you to suffer through reams of having to do homework or whatever. What I do in my class is I want it to be fun and exciting, and it's as much for me as it is for the students. So, Benjamin Franklin, you know, if you tell me, I will forget. No fire hoses. If you teach me, so what is teaching? And we were trying to get to that at our table. When I say I like to teach, what is it I actually like to do. I like to get the students to think about what they're doing, problem solving. I mean, teach in and of itself is a really hard thing to put your finger on and can mean so many different things to other people. But involve me and I learn. And that's what we need to do. And so in my mind, my personal philosophy is I am a tour guide. And I have a lot of reasons for this. Number one, I love the outside. I love to do these things. But if you think about what is a tour guide? First of all, you take a tour guide when you're going through someplace exciting, right? It's exciting. Now, I may have been there before, right? Typically, you don't want a tour guide who's going there their first time, right? You want someone who's been there before, but every time you go, you learn something new because it's all about me. I do this because I'm doing it for myself. And every time you do it, it's different, right? You have different people. Maybe it's raining, if you're tour guiding. It's different every time you go through. Different people, different things. Just like on a tour, right? And you have interesting destinations. And you have to navigate difficult situations, right? There may be those in the class that are having a hard time with something, and it's my job to get them to the end, whether they're complaining about the bugs or sore feet or whatever. Everybody has to make it. That's the idea. And some people, you're just sitting pointing out the highlights, and that's all they're there for. But others really want to see the minutia of the flora and fauna. And as a tour guide, I'm there for both. So great scenery, new people and ideas, and mostly, I'm there too, right? We're in this field because we're interested in it. We're interested in exploring it. And I like doing the homeworks before I hand them out in class. I like doing my projects. I mean, the class is as much about me as it's about my students. For example, I'm retiring. I don't know if you guys knew that. This is my last semester. I'm teaching a brand new class this semester because I wanted to learn something new before I left. That's my philosophy. Have fun. I think we all said that. We have to have fun in class. So, back to you.
I'm thinking about dossiers that I read all the time, PG dossiers, and what the inspiring ones look like. And there's usually statements about things that we've been talking about, and a paragraph of why I wanted to become a professor. There's also usually something in that dossier that says something about what they're hoping to do for students. What is it you want? What gift do you want to give them? Is it passion for learning? Frankly, that probably would carry them through the day. Is it some detailed set of information that's going to help them get a job at Newport Steel? What is it you hope your students learn from your classes? I really like the approach of laying out in detail and in a dossier of picking one of the classes that you enjoy teaching and talking in depth about aspects of that class. It really brings to life the dossier. Just reading a bunch of syllabi and table after table of here's the course I taught in the fall semester, here's how many students, here's my CET scores. Keep in mind it's people from outside your discipline that are primarily looking at your dossier. And I know you shouldn't be doing all this just because of a dossier for promotion and tenure. It should be an engagement of why I want to be a professor. How am I going to be good at it? So maybe if we tackle one about the student perspective and thinking through a little bit about that'd be a good way for us to close out last session.
Yeah, this is the closing part.
Yep.
I was just reading Abby's notes, and since Abby's not here, I have to step up and
You're doing just what Abby would do if Abby was here. Yeah, Abby would try to organize Larry and I. It wouldn't work.
I think she wanted the the intention was to have the last more of an open group discussion instead of a breakout. That's the only thing I was going to suggest, and also to recognize that, you know, there's a lot of folk in the room who have had some really illuminating ideas that they've shared and learned here today at their small tables. So I just want to encourage you to, everybody in this room has something to contribute.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll say something that I learned at my table that bothered me just a little bit. I was asked, we were talking about favorite classes to teach, and it's like, well, I just teach what I'm told to. I'm thinking, oh boy, that would drive me nuts if I only got to teach things I was told to, as compared to developing a new class, something totally brand new, something totally my baby. What's everybody else's experience in this regard? Do you get to pick classes you want to teach, or is it mostly on the basis of assignment? Well, what defines the department's needs?
Not me.
I know with respect to engineering and ABET, you know, there's a certain set of, here's a core knowledge that we need to tackle. And, but other than that, when it comes down to technical electives and developing specialty classes, there's some freedom there, which is nice. Amber, what do you think?
In my situation, it's kind of both. I'm the only clinician, so when it comes to the clinical courses, then you really are not, you're not much in a psychology department if you don't offer abnormal psychology. So yes, I will be teaching that every fall. But at the same time, Dr. Murray let me develop drugs and behavior 3 years ago, which is one of my specialties, and so I got to create that new class, and that was a lot of fun. And if I had the option, I think, and the time, I would propose for my next new class to develop the psychology of trauma, which is my other specialty. So yeah, I think in my case it's kind of both. There's stuff that I just have to teach for department needs, but then I can develop things too.
So before we turn you loose to work on this, we'll make it as wide open as possible. I want to say two things. One is, some of you may know, but many of you may not, that on February 1, CAFE merged with the instructional design team, and Malcolm's here, and Victoria's here, and Beth is here, and Meg is here. Did I miss anybody from the team?
Only the ones that are here.
Okay. And it's been terrific, the merger of these two units. We have had multiple retreats, spending more hours than Malcolm cares to count up. No, it's been really good because we've learned about each other, what strengths we have and areas that we need to work upon, and it's going to work really well. And the second thing is, you're retiring effective this semester. Effective May 31, I'm walking out the door from CAFE, and it's only been recently publicly announced that my successor is right here. And if I may, an editorial comment about her selection. When Provost Marley selected me and Wayne to head CAFE, he had a particular strategy in mind that was evident from the very beginning. He picked an old seasoned chair from engineering and computing and a much older seasoned chair from College of Arts, Science and Business, so that we would have credibility with the department chairs in the two colleges, and that was strategically a really smart thing to do. But you heard Wayne at the beginning say, I just took building blocks for the first time in my life. I've been teaching 33 years. Well, my successor won't have to say something like that, because all the instructional design team know that Irina has been engaged with them for years and years and years. So I think the transition is a logical one, and it's going to make CAFE even stronger.
When you made your presentation, I actually was thinking about, and I would like to tell you how we define type of students in foreign language field learning, right? And again, it's a travel analogy. When students come to us initially, they are tourists. Their ultimate goal is just to, see the landmarks, hop from attraction to attraction, and they have no idea whether they're going to continue traveling or most of them probably want to go back home because they miss, McDonald's or whichever. But our goal is through that guiding process to turn them into travelers. And the difference between a tourist and a traveler, you tell me what it is. You do it over and over again, right? And you come back to what you love and you expand on it. But then again, when we have a group of travelers, our next step would be to turn them into explorers. And you said that word, and I'm just going to repeat it. I was so pleased to hear that presentation because I think our ultimate goal here is to turn the students, when we can, from tourists to travelers to explorers. That's the comment I want to make. Thank you guys for listening.